Wrestling fans, are you ready? For the thousands in attendance and the millions watching around the world, let's get ready to rumble!
And now, please welcome at this time your hosts, Graham GSM Matthews and RJ Marceau. You're listening to the next era of wrestling radio. This is WrestleRant Radio.
Back here on WrestleRant Radio for Thursday, August 8th, 2024. Graham G. Matthews here, as always being joined by the returning one, the only, the illustrious Mr. Marceau. Brother, how you doing?
Doing good. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Still recovering from Cleveland SummerSlam weekend. We were literally, before we hit record here, just talking about reminiscing on Montreal Elimination Chamber 2023 weekend and how great that was. I immediately thought of you when they announced, and I got a bunch of things to discuss and get to before we get to SummerSlam and Raw for Monday, which were both very eventful in their own right. I immediately thought of you when they announced last Thursday. Survivor Series is actually headed to Vancouver, Canada for the War Games show. They're bringing back War Games November 30th. I think the latest that Survivor Series has ever been. I think that's Thanksgiving weekend after, not before. Same weekend as last year, but it's like a week later. It's kind of confusing. But yeah, they're headed back to Canada for Survivor Series. So not a massive news item, but I mean, they were already in Canada in Toronto for Money in the Bank. It looks like they're already headed back soon. I'm still waiting for them to go back to Montreal one of these days.
Yeah, I saw that last week. Pretty big news. I mean, it is Canada, but it's on the whole other side. I mean, it's basically like Washington State at that point. So I feel like they really haven't gone out to Vancouver that many times. So I mean, it's close enough to Seattle. They can probably pull from, like, the United States and Canada. So I think it's, I mean, you know what they do. They go there and they offer them money, and then they go and have a pay-per-view there. So I like the international shows. That one's close enough to the United States. You can kind of get a little bit of both. But, yeah, that was pretty big news. I'm not in love with the War Games. Like, I know, like, we have to roll it out every November. But at this point, I guess I just have to accept it.
It is funny, though, you know, when we went to Montreal, it was like, from you, it was like a 5-hour drive. From Connecticut, it probably wasn't that much farther, but you are closer to it than I am in Mass. And it was like a 5-hour drive. Toronto was like 8. We didn't go to Toronto, but I looked it up. It's like an 8-hour drive. We looked it up earlier, too. So I'm like, you know what, just for shits and giggles, I wonder how far Vancouver is of a drive. It's literally over a day. Like, it's not even remotely close. Like I said earlier, I am not good with geography at all. So I don't know where certain cities are and how close they are to this or that or whatever. It must be in the far fucking back left or whatever of Canada. That might be like the equivalent of driving from here to California. Maybe not quite as far, but it's still pretty far. If you're taking, without breaks either, like over a day to get there, that's crazy. So I wasn't going anyway, but I saw that. I was like, man, that's wild. Montreal, if I saw that on the calendar, might have to hit up Mr. Marceau. But until they go back then, I might not need to renew my passport until that time comes. But a lot more news to get to. New episodes, though, of WrestleRant Radio available every single week on WrestleRant.com, WrestleRantRadio.com, iTunes, Spotify, all the usual podcast platforms. Rate, review, subscribe to the show. Never miss a new episode every single Thursday. I am still working through, I said this on hashtag yesterday, I'm still trying to figure out this fucking audio issue. I don't know if this will be affected or not. It might be. It's just really annoying. So I'm trying to work through it, and I apologize. But for now, I'm just trying to manage through it, so just bear with me. But the other thing I did want to mention to you, Mr. Marceau, as far as shows are concerned and locations and stuff like that, like I said, a lot of news that came out this last week since we last spoke on the phone. WWE announcing on Tuesday that NXT is going to be having its first 2 shows on the road on the CW. So they're headed to the CW on October 1st. And their first 2 shows, this was rumored a while ago, but now it's official per WWE. That first show is going to be in Chicago at the Allstate Arena, which, you know, is typically where WWE's gone in the past for their Chicago shows. And the second week will be in St. Louis or St. Louis, whatever, with Randy Orton on the show. The first show will have CM Punk. The second show will have Randy Orton on it. So they're going to like Raw and SmackDown arenas for these first 2 weeks of NXT. You're not going to sell out an NXT show at the Allstate Arena based on Obafemi versus Duke Hudson alone. I mean, they have a good roster, and I've been digging NXT lately for the most part, but you're going to need a lot more than that to do some pretty decent numbers for those shows, no matter how hot the current product is for WWE. I know they did like 13,000 in the Wells Fargo Center for the TakeOver show. They don't call it TakeOver anymore, but the Mania Weekend show this year. But that was also WrestleMania Weekend for a standalone show, and they're not doing this consistently. It's only the first few weeks, which is cool. They can't make a habit out of doing it every single week without piggybacking off of something else. I think it's cool, so wanted to get your thoughts on that. NXT hitting the road for its first 2 CW shows this October.
Yeah, I think it's pretty neat. I mean, I think it's a pretty big deal. So going to those 2 big arenas, grabbing the 2 hometown boys with Punk and Randy specifically, I think those are good gets. Like you said, I doubt they'll sell out, but I think they could pull a good crowd, especially with Punk and Orton in each of their cities respectively. But I think it's a pretty big deal for them, and hopefully they can kind of keep the momentum going once they move to the CW.
I'm not one of those people that constantly wear a tinfoil hat, but you got to imagine part of the reason why they're not just doing this, but their second week, not the first week, but the second week. The same thing happened last year. Now, they didn't run a bigger arena last year, but on that exact Tuesday, last year was October 10th. This year, because of the leap year, it's October 8th. They're running opposite of Dynamite. Dynamite's headed to their town, not literally town, but like their night on Tuesday night. For their Title Tuesday show. AEW already announced this like a week or 2 ago, that they're moving to Tuesdays for that 1 week. And last year it was huge. They really stacked that Tuesday night show for Dynamite. NXT stacked their show, and it was a great night of wrestling. It kind of brought me back, which was not fun every single week, but to those NXT Dynamite days on Wednesdays when they were having dueling shows in 2019, 2020, and early 2021. That's what it's going to be in a couple weeks. So, NXT is doing that and bringing in Orton for that first big show, or that second big show on the CW, because they know they're airing opposite of AEW that night. And granted, it's not like NXT's going to their night. It's Dynamite coming to them. But it is still funny that they're doing that, and they're totally doing it on purpose. I think Punk, he's appeared on NXT before. I know he was in those first few competition shows, but since they were taping at Full Sail, he may have appeared on the show early on. I think he did, back in 2012. He hasn't been on it since, I don't think. Orton, I don't know if he's ever been on the show. He may have a long time ago, but not in a very long time, so they'll be cool gets for the brand for their first few weeks on Sci-Fi. 2 AEW-related notes here. I did watch Dynamite last night. Literally nothing of note worth noting from that show. It was a fine show. Their build for Wembley's been really good, I think, and we'll talk about All In as we get closer to it, and I'll get your predictions and stuff like that in a couple weeks. But last night's show was a nothing burger. But I will say this, 2 notes on AEW. One, the Britt Baker MJF drama. Now, this isn't really that big of a deal, but it did make the rounds on the media rounds late last week. I already discussed this at length to an extent on Hashtag on Wednesday, so I won't go on forever about this. But basically, just in a nutshell, I believe Britt Baker basically talking shit, criticizing MJF, maybe the hour-long match he had on Dynamite with Will Ospreay about a week or 2 ago. MJF's wife, who now is girlfriend, who now works for AEW, Alicia Toot. She's the interviewer on the show. Haven't seen her on there in a couple of weeks, but she was in the locker room, heard this, went back to MJF with it. He got pissed, went to go talk to Britt Baker about it. They had a bit of a heated discussion. He punched the wall. Will Ospreay talked to Britt Baker about it. That was basically the long and short of it. There's a lot more that goes into it. Not typically. We don't have to discuss every every dramatic situation that happens behind the scenes in this company, because WWE, I'm sure it happens, but we just don't really hear about it. But why is this shit still happening? I got to get your 2 cents in this, Mr. Marceau. Why are we still hearing about it? Why is this shit still happening? Now, they did suspend Britt Baker. That is also worth noting. She was back last night. She sounded like she was sick. She wasn't back in person. She was on the screen, so I guess her suspension is up. I don't know. But they did suspend her briefly. I don't know if they had a sit-down for them to kind of work through their issues, which is kind of what happened with the Punk stuff, where they did not do that, and that's why it escalated to the point that it did. So your thoughts on the whole situation and how AEW can remedy this going forward?
I guess my first question is, what was her biggest problem? Was she, I haven't really seen too much out of her. Was she mad that they got, a full hour, 1 hour Broadway? I don't really know what her real complaint was. I mean, it's pretty much the two biggest stars in the company had an hour match, and it was probably one of the better matches they've had on TV in a long, long time. I just realistically don't understand what the complaint really could have been. I know she's in the past complained that she doesn't get enough fucking airtime and stuff like that, but I mean, I think you're complaining to the two wrong people. I mean, they're the two biggest people in the company. I think it's pretty silly to bark off when, I mean, I don't really know what there is really to complain about.
Yeah, I mean, also, too, unless they had a say in how long that match went, why wouldn't she go complain to Tony Khan about that sort of thing, though? Remember, like, you mentioned how the tweet where she was complaining that the women don't get enough time. She mentioned MJF, I think, in that tweet. Maybe someone else. I don't remember. But, that's not really... MJF, I'm sure, has a say in his creative and whatnot. But the person allotting him said time is the booker, Tony Khan. Does she ever take it up with him? Like, he seems like he's kind of lost in the shuffle here as far as being the one to blame. Not entirely, but, I mean, he was the one who booked the match and wanted it to go an hour. If Tony Khan didn't want it, it wouldn't have happened. So why is she complaining to the women's locker room about it and not to the booker himself?
Yeah, but, like, I think the problem is, like, who is she to complain out loud?
I mean, did she also not get a match, or not a match, but a segment with Mercedes Moné a couple weeks ago that went like 20 minutes? Like, that first promo that she had when she came back went like 20 minutes, and it was a great promo, but I think that was the week before MJF and Ospreay had their match, so who gives a shit? I know it's not an hour.
No, like, I don't know. I just feel like I don't know if she's like, she's very entitled, I think she's bigger than she is, but like, that's like, I don't even know who we compare it to, but it'd be like, if Liv Morgan complained that Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes had a fucking hour-long... Like, who are you? You're not the star. Like, just shut your mouth. I don't know. I just don't get it, and I can understand, like, why Ospreay or MJF be pissed. Like, we're literally the two of the biggest people. Like, we're two of the reasons people watch the fucking show. Like,
yeah.
Get over it. I don't know. I just, like you said, I think it's just... Tony doesn't know what he's doing. It's been clear as day since the beginning. He doesn't know, like, they like, you go into the discipline committee, like, you're a fucking boss, make a fucking decision. You need to go a group of people to decide on what this is. Like, you go to her and say, hey, these are our two biggest stars, you don't like it, fucking kick bricks. I mean, she's expendable. Not like they don't need her. I mean, you start cutting you just need to be a boss. It's not that hard.
I mean, that just goes back to the Punk stuff and everything else that's happened behind the scenes. Not everything is his fault, but I mean, it does go back to the idea that you need to be a boss and not their friend. Suspending her is one thing. I know you mentioned, like, what did she do exactly? I mean, she did complain, obviously, but, like, what would have warranted the suspension? Apparently, reportedly, she was also involved either in other stuff or had done other stuff where there were other incidents where they were like, okay, we got to suspend her. Like, it wasn't just this. I mean, MJF was not suffered no repercussions for whatever because he didn't really do anything. But at the same time, does he need to be punching a wall? Like, dude, like, how fucking old are we? Like, what are we, especially at work, too? Like, what are you doing? Punching a wall, is that really necessary? He obviously wasn't thrilled about the situation. But, like, I don't know. The whole thing seems super stupid, but they just have to kind of focus on the bigger takeaway for me here is that they got to avoid this shit by talking to their talent, having a sit-down. If they don't like each other, they don't have to sing Kumbaya and hold hands, but they do have to be able to coexist and not be going to talk to this person and talk to that person. It's like high school bullshit for a major league company that's trying to gain momentum again, that hasn't really fully recovered from that CM Punk stuff 2 years ago. It feels like we're falling into the same trap here of the same shit happening over and over with he said this, she said that, and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, just like it comes back to management at the end of the day, and unless Tony's going to do something, it's going to continue to happen. Yeah,
exactly. One more AEW note here. It was reported from Fightful on Tuesday. Wrestle Purist, I think, was actually the first one to mention this on Tuesday or Monday, but Fightful backed it up with a report the following day. The Lucha Bros apparently on their way out of AEW and potentially on the way to WWE. Now, I know we talked about this about a month or two ago with Penta. His deal was said to have been up in like September, August. It's August now, so I think it might be September. They were day oneers. Him and Phoenix joined the company together back, not exactly day one, but it was like the following month. They were revealed at one of the press conferences they did. They signed with AEW, and they've had a lot of success. Former AEW World Tag Team Champions, former AEW World Trios Champions. Phoenix is a former international champion. They won the Ring of Honor Tag Team titles. I mean, definitely one of the top tag teams in the world. Now, they haven't been focused on in a while, and it was pretty clear that they were never going to be focused on as single stars, which I think is really where their worth is, but now they're going to WWE, apparently. It would obviously be as a tag team. They're older now. I don't know how old Penta is exactly. I mean, he's been around for a bit. I was watching him in Lucha Underground a decade ago, so I'm not exactly sure how old he is or what value they would have on their own. But, again, like I said, we did talk about this a little while ago, and you had mentioned maybe not Penta in WWE, especially on his own, because I'm not sure if they would book him well on his own. But as a tag team, there could be some value there. Among, Motor City Machine Guns, we discussed them recently, the potential and the possibility of them going to WWE as well. So WWE could be adding a lot more depth to their tag team division very, very soon. Your thoughts on the report on the Lucha Bros maybe headed to WWE? Is it a good or bad move, or should they just stay in AEW?
I feel like for both parties, it just really depends on what they're doing with their tag team divisions. I mean, Raw, I think it's JD and Finn are champions, and SmackDown, Tama Tonga and Sheikha Fatu just won those last week. So, I don't know. I think it realistically depends on what they want to do. They've kind of revitalized it, but then they kind of didn't. Like last week, I think Raw, like Theory and Waller beat Miz and R-Truth. Like JD and Finn are obviously doing the whole stuff with the Judgment Day. I don't know. I feel like they need to put it on actual tag teams and actually focus on it instead of putting in the belts on two people in a group and then not really focusing on the tag team division. So I think depending on what they do, I think it's a decent move. I don't know if they'd start in NXT first, but I mean, I think it's worth a try. WWE-wise.
Yeah, I believe the report had indicated that they don't want to go to NXT. And I think an NXT run would be fine, but honestly, let me look it up right now. Let me see how old they are. Because if they're on the older side, listen, Motor City Machine Guns in WWE, I would love to see it. And I don't really mind where they start, but at this point, they should probably go to the main roster. Yeah, okay, so Lucha Bros, Penta is 39 years old. He's 39. And, I mean, LA Knight signed WWE around 39 years old.
Felix is 33, so...
Oh, wow, that's a big difference. I didn't think they were that far apart. 33. So, wait, he was in Lucha as a 23-year-old? That's fucking crazy. Wow, because that company started a decade ago. That's really wild. Yeah, I mean, I think they could have some success there. I think, again, WWE, one of their biggest blind spots right now, Triple H specifically, let's be honest, is the tag team division. Not that AEW's tag team division is lighting the world on fire right now. They have a lot of good teams, but for a company that was known for its tag teams, they don't really have a lot of depth in that division either.
Honestly, who are even the tag team champions? I couldn't even tell you.
The Bucks. But you know what, though? The Bucks won those tag team titles in April. They have not had a single defense since. That's surprising.
I didn't even know. I honestly had no idea, so.
Yeah, they won that tournament after Sting and Darby were champions, and they vacated them. And the Bucks won the belts. FTR want the shot at Wembley. It's obviously going to go to the Acclaimed. They've kind of made that clear. And that's fine, but they have the Bucks, they have FTR, they have the Acclaimed. There's obviously other people as well. But I don't know, man. It's kind of weird. It's just kind of weird to think that, the momentum is kind of shifting in WWE's favor. I mean, I would have never guessed that Penta and Phoenix, who have been close to the Bucks for a while, they had some amazing tag team matches with the Bucks and AEW, that they would be headed to WWE, because that is a real risk, especially at this point. I know WWE had interest in them 5-6 years ago when they were first free agents, leaving TNA. Going to AEW first was probably the right call, because had they gone to WWE 5 years ago, dude, could you have imagined, when Vince was still in charge, they would have been the 4th and 5th members of the fucking Lucha House Party. I mean, I don't want to say, obviously, they could always end up in the LWO, which would be pretty stupid, but I think they should be brought in, go right to the main roster, and wreak some havoc, and just in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I think specifically, they've always been the same kind of team. So, they've been facing heel, but, they're still the same two guys. I mean, I think what a lot of people fail to realize, if you're not, a top guy, I mean, why do you think the territories are the way they were? If you weren't a top guy, you couldn't just, hang around for 5 years. Eventually, people just got old of you. I mean, they haven't really changed at all. They're still the same people. So they've been in AEW for almost 5 years. They've pretty much done everything they can do. how many times are you going to see them in the Bucks and FTR? Like, they face the same teams 100 times. It's to the point that if they're not going to change, you kind of got to change scenery. So I think that's kind of what they do. If it doesn't work out, I feel like they could always probably go with the AAA or CMLL or whoever they have that alliance with in Mexico. But, I mean, I think that's the thing with them in AEW. I think they've pretty much done everything, and at this point, what's left for them to do that they haven't already done? There's no new teams, so it's not like they're going to feud with anyone new.
Especially if Motor City Machine Guns are headed to WWE, that would be like the one top team they can really work with. I mean, they were also, it's weird too, because, and I assume the contract stuff had something to do with this, they were building towards at one point, actually that's not true, Jay White got hurt, so that's probably why, but at one point they were building towards, and I think they did do it actually, I'm sorry, I think they did do Bang Bang Gang against Death Triangle. Dude, they do so many matches, it's hard to remember. I don't fucking remember. I also call them by that dumbass name. It's Bullet Club Gold. I don't know why I called them Bang Bang Gang.
No, it's the Gang Bang Scissor Gang.
Stop. But yeah, they've done all they can do there. I'm honestly kind of surprised that Tony Khan didn't attempt to do more with them on their own. I mean, I mentioned Phoenix was the international champion for fucking 2 weeks. I think he won it by accident.
I think that was like because Moxley got hurt. I don't think that was a plan.
Yeah, I don't even think that was the... Yeah, he dropped it pretty quickly too, so that's probably why. I mean, they've done some single stuff, but primarily it's been like tag team stuff. And they are an amazing team. I just wanted to see more from Penta on his own, more from Phoenix on his own. You know, it's fine, but we'll see. We'll see what happens, and we might find out soon, because apparently they are free agents within the next month or two, and they could be headed to WWE soon after. So hopefully they don't add on time to their contracts, because both guys, specifically Phoenix, has been hurt a lot in AEW. They might add on some time to his deals, so time will tell on that front. But finally, we get to SummerSlam on Saturday, which I thought overall was a great show, and I said this the other day, probably the best top-to-bottom SummerSlam they've had in maybe about a decade. We've been to a few SummerSlams, and there's been good ones, there's been not so good ones, there's been some pretty good ones, but I think overall this was a great show with a lot of stuff happening, title changes, some pretty good matches, a great match in there as well. I really enjoyed the show, so we'll talk about the ultimate impressions of the show at the end. But we will start at the beginning here with the Women's World Championship match. Liv Morgan indeed retaining the title as expected, with Dominik Mysterio turning on Rhea. And it wasn't one of those, oh, did he mean it? Was it intentional? No, they went all in. They went all in and had him turn on Rhea and join Liv and make out with her afterwards. So this was a hot start to the show. What were your thoughts, Mr. Marceau?
I thought it was a hot start, and it was the start we needed. That was the perfect first match. Like you said, at first, like Dom... stopped Rhea. I mean, Rhea had, the shoulder thing, so she was working on the shoulder the whole match. I feel like they told a good story there. Rhea kind of, popped back in place, psycho Rhea. You're like, oh, fuck, Liv's done. Liv brought the chair in. Rhea's like, oh, I'm just going to do it. Dom, you're seeing, he's like, no, you can't win if you get DQ'd. You're like, oh, look, he's trying to defend her, trying to help her out. And then, obviously, the tide turned. But thought it was done well. Obviously, helped Liv win, and then we got the nice smooch at the end of the at the match, and kind of like you said, got the full turn at that point. So I thought it was predictable, but I think it was predictably well, and I had no issues with it.
No, I agree. I mean, it went down the way that we thought it would, but the crowd ate it up, and it is pretty amazing when you think about Dominik turned heel here, but he was already a heel. He is a great example of someone who is just a great heel, and that he can turn from heel to heel and still get great heat for it. That was pretty remarkable.
Yeah, no, I mean, obviously he was aligned with Rhea, always a heel, but aligned with the babyface, and then just went full heel again. So, I mean, it was good stuff. I said predictable, but it came off amazing.
No, I agree. It came off really, really well. We went from that to the Intercontinental Championship match, Bron Breakker beating Sami Zayn, and probably the biggest shocker here was the fact that it went only 5 minutes, a little under 6 minutes, Bron Breakker beating Sami in a good match, not nearly as good as their Money in the Bank match, but I don't know if it was supposed to be or they ran short on time. Got to get that Jelly Roll concert in there, got to get that Jelly Roll attacking Awesome Truth segment in there, which we're fine, but it's if you take that shit out, I mean, you could have given these guys... They were the only match in the show, actually, that went under 10 minutes, and it went significantly under 10 minutes. So they were probably looking at a 6-match card, and they wanted to get a 7th match on there. They probably could have just saved this for Raw, to be honest with you, and done it there as opposed to giving them 5 minutes. But at least they are getting the chance to redeem themselves next week on Raw in a 2 out of 3 falls match, where Sami will get his rematch. So I'm looking forward to that. But as far as this match goes, Not much worth writing home about as far as the match itself, but Breaker is the new Intercontinental Champion as he takes another step forward towards superstardom. So, your thoughts on the all-new Intercontinental Champion, Bron Breakker?
I thought this match was short, sweet, to the point, and Bron won, which needed to happen. Wasn't mad at when it only went 5 minutes and 40 seconds, as it says here. I mean, obviously it could have been a little bit more, but I think Bron needed the win. It was kind of more of a quick, dominant win than obviously the other matches on this card, but the right result, and I had no issues.
And it clears up Sami Zayn as well to maybe do something with the bloodline or to challenge Gunther at some point down the road or something like that. So I feel like it's kind of equally beneficial for the both of them. We had another championship change in the mid-card scene right after that. LA Knight beating Logan Paul for the United States Championship. And a good match, obviously riddled with interference as any Logan Paul match has for the past 2 years now. But the guy can go. He's obviously a very good performer inside those ropes. And I thought they had a very good match here. Machine Gun Kelly, Kevin Owens, his old rival, making an appearance at ringside. Was not enough, though. LA Knight still pulling out the victory and becoming the new owner of the Star-Spangled Prize. So, again, like I said, I thought this was good. Your thoughts on the title change, but also, we talked about it last week. I don't know if you picked LA Knight, I forgot. I know I picked Logan Paul. Do you think... I still think Logan Paul probably would have won, and I think LA Knight should have won regardless. But I feel like they could have changed plans based on the backlash that Logan Paul got for that stupid tweet that he put out about a week ago. So again, your thoughts on the match, and do you think this was always the plan, and did they change course?
I think it was always the plan. I don't think they changed it based on that. But I thought it was a good match. I think the Logan Paul springboard out of the ring thing was ridiculous. I don't know what you call it, but that was pretty cool. They said this Machine Gun Kelly interference. You know you're going to get it, but I think LA Knight winning was the right decision. He won. No complaints.
Yeah, I thought it was well done. Right outcome. We can finally get back to having a regular United States champion on the show, an active United States champion. No more going 9 months with three title defenses. That's ridiculous. So, yeah, it was fine for what it was, and I thought they had a good match, and we can hopefully move on from this. If they want to do a rematch, that's fine. Maybe a rematch at Bash in Berlin. A United States title match in another country would be interesting, but, not that they haven't done that before. That would be totally fine, and I think that's what makes the most sense. I'm glad they went with LA Knight as the new champion. They're not delaying it any further, which I kind of feared that they would. We get yet another new champion crowned in the next matchup. Nia Jax beating Bayley for the WWE Women's title. A good match, probably the weakest match on the show, but that's not to say it was a bad match. But Nia Jax, again, after Nia pinned Bayley, I was kind of thinking Bayley might pull out the win here. I never really thought Tiffany would cash in because they just gave her new customized briefcase on Friday's SmackDown, so I knew that wasn't going to happen, even though Tiffany went to ringside here. But Nia did pull through and become the new champion for a third consecutive title change on this show. Thoughts on the match and thoughts on yet another new champion, Mr. Marceau?
Yeah, I thought this, like you said, probably the weakest match of the night. I like what they've done with Nia. Bayley's been a decent champion, but I feel like she just kind of lost what she had before. But I thought it was a decent match. Tiffy coming out, like you said, I didn't think she was going to cash in, especially with the brand new briefcase, but I think it kind of added maybe a new element to this match, and Nia pinned her 1, 2, 3, and we got a new champion. So I thought it was a decent match. Nia's been doing better work since she's been back. I feel like she kind of deserved it, and it was kind of the right decision. Again, I've kind of been a beaten drum, predictable, but I think the right decision.
Now, as far as both women are concerned, with Nia, do you think this is like a lengthy run for her? Obviously, they're telling the story of Tiffany being Miss Money in the Bank. She could cash in on her at any time. I don't think she cashes in anytime soon. If they really want to maximize this new customized briefcase for Tiffany. For Tiffany. Do you think Nia Jax is the long-term plan for the WWE Women's Championship? Because I'm kind of getting the feeling that she probably is, at least through December, if not the Royal Rumble. I don't know about WrestleMania, but probably through that point.
I was going to say probably through Rumble.
Yeah, I think that would make the most sense. As far as Bayley goes, though, she was only champion since Mania. It wasn't a month-long title run, but she did have successful title defenses against Naomi, Tiffany, Piper Niven at Clash of the Castle, and she faced her on SmackDown, too. She was active on SmackDown, but her run ultimately kind of fell flat for a lot of people. Now, I don't think it was a bad run. I thought it was perfectly fine for what it was. But I think the biggest difference between her title run and like Liv's, for example, is that she didn't really have a lot of compelling story. She defended the title like a fighting champion, and she wrestled on SmackDown. But she didn't really have this great character arc, the same way that she did going into WrestleMania with Io Sky and turning babyface, and people were really into that. Kind of left a lot to be desired. So what do you think is next for Bayley as far as kind of getting her back on track and putting her back in chase mode? Is that the best thing for Bayley right now?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I feel like you said, I think going into WrestleMania, obviously she had a good character arc because she was the whole damage control stuff. So everyone was behind her. They turn on her. I feel like it made sense. But coming out of Mania, I feel like it was just she defended the title a good amount of times, but just the same character or want for her just wasn't there. So I'm not sure exactly. I don't think she's winning the title back right now. I'm not really sure exactly what you do with her. I wouldn't turn her heel again. I just feel like it'd be too soon. But then as a face, I really don't know what you do with her either. So, it's tough. Like I said, I think she was a good champion. Just the reign, just kind of, like I said, it wasn't overly compelling. Not sure exactly. Like I said, her new character, I don't really know what it is. I mean, I feel like the whole point of the turn was to get a damage control, and now she's just is what she is. So, they have to work on that a little bit, but yeah, I think that's kind of why her title reign kind of fell flat, because once she won the belt, there really wasn't any reason to care because she already beat damage control at that point.
Yeah, and after that, she kind of peaked as a character, and there was more they could have done with that, or in the aftermath, or with other opponents and stuff like that, and they just kind of, failed to follow up properly. And I do feel like they did fail her as the WWE Women's Champion. Now, again, it wasn't a bad run, but for what it could have been, considering the momentum she had earlier this year, didn't really pan out the way that I thought it would. Now, they do have some depth in that division on SmackDown. They have Bianca. They have Jade. Charlotte will be back at some point and will probably be on SmackDown. If Andrade's on SmackDown, Charlotte will be on SmackDown at some point. Probably soon, I would have to think. Her among other people as well. So, they have Naomi, Tiffany, Nia. There's a whole lot of people on SmackDown right now. So, they could give her a non-title program or something. I feel like there's options there. But, I am curious what they do with her next. Maybe a rematch with Nia and she loses that too. But they have to find a way to kind of heat her up again and keep her busy in a non-title story. Because she's been in the title mix for a while. Maybe she goes away for a little bit and she comes back. I don't know. And she feels fresh again. I'm not sure. But, I just kind of wished more from her title run. But hopefully they can kind of get it right in the aftermath now that she's no longer the WWE Women's Champion. Now, probably the most polarizing match on the show. I saw some people say they really enjoyed it. I saw some people say that they thought it sucked. Drew McIntyre beating CM Punk with Seth Rollins as the special guest referee. I really enjoyed the match. It was more of a storytelling thing. People's biggest issue with it was that it was too much storytelling and not enough grudge match, beating the shit out of each other, which is what I was hoping for from their first match. So I totally get why people would be underwhelmed by that. What camp do you fall in, Mr. Marceau? Did you like the match, or were you one of those people that was hoping for more and was ultimately underwhelmed by what we got?
I would say I enjoyed it. Like I said, I think a lot of people nowadays just don't like storytelling. And, this was a ton of it. But I think it made sense. Punk kind of the worst part is, he did a lot of things storytelling-wise that you thought, that's the reason he'd lose. But, it actually didn't really screw him in the end. Him getting in his own way kind of screwed him in the end. He went to get the bracelet, and then he got hit with the Claymore, kicked out, and then him screwing over Rollins is basically what screwed him in the end because he just couldn't contain himself. I thought it was a good match. I had no complaints. I think a lot of times a lot of matches don't have any story, so maybe people just prefer the spot fest. But I think storytelling wise, I thought it was great.
Yeah, I thought they did a great job of furthering the feud. And here's the thing too. Do you think it's not that big of a deal that they didn't go all out here because they are saving that ultimate bad blood payoff, pun intended, I suppose, for said bad blood pay-per-view in October inside Hell in a Cell, and that's probably why they held back here a little bit?
Yeah, I think also just, like I said, there's a good story arc to it, the whole bracelet and, there was a story there to be told, so I feel like you said, they kind of got that part of the story, and bad blood would be more the beatdown slugfest than what this was supposed to be.
And that's what people were kind of complaining about, that it was way too much about the bracelet. Now, that again, didn't really bother me. You're entitled to your opinion. That's totally fine. I didn't really see it that way. I mean, it's not about the bracelet literally itself. It's more about Drew disrespecting CM Punk's family, his wife, his dog. And we just haven't, we haven't gotten to the next stage of the storyline yet. It's obviously far from over between the two, and they need to blow it off inside Hell in a Cell at that Bad Blood show. That would just make the most sense. Rollins is going in a different direction from here, but they did lay the groundwork for Punk and Rollins. They were about to come to blows on Raw before Drew interrupted them. We'll get to what happened to Rollins in our Raw review momentarily, but I think it's smart to lay the ground. I mean, Punk was made to look like an idiot by focusing too much on Rollins and not on Drew, by that costing him the win. But I think they're doing a nice job of setting the stage for Punk and Rollins at some point down the road. And I did say you could do it going into the fall after the Drew feud is over. But the more I think about it and the way that they're kind of planning this out, I'm thinking they're going to save Punk and Rollins for Mania. What do you think?
Yeah, I think the same way. I think you can flesh it out. They both are seemingly busy now, so I mean, I would flesh it out longer.
I agree. World Heavyweight Championship match: Gunther taking on Damian Priest for the belt. Probably the best match of the entire show, like best wrestling match. These two just beat the shit out of each other. And in the end, Gunther becoming the all-new World Heavyweight Champion after Gunther forcing Damian to pass out to his choke submission. Finn Balor getting involved, costing Damian the win, putting Gunther's foot on the rope. Damian went after him, tried to choke him. Gunther took advantage. Damian gets out of it, only to fall back asleep. And Gunther is the all-new World Heavyweight Champion. This was great stuff. It was the outcome that was necessary. You know, I had seen some people say, oh, they could have kept the belt on Priest for another couple weeks and put the belt on Gunther in Berlin. Yeah, I guess they could have, but I wouldn't have Gunther lose just to win it a couple weeks later. I would not get in the habit of beating Gunther just because he's already lost in the main roster once to Sami Zayn. There was no reason to have him lose here. And I'm glad they just pulled the trigger and they did the turn here, and they also had Gunther become champion. I feel like it was a nice not double-edged sword, but like a nice, double here, I guess. They had a double with Gunther becoming champion and Finn Balor also turning on Damian. So a lot happening here and a great match. Mr. Marceau, your top takeaways of this matchup here.
Yeah, I thought this was the right outcome. I mean, I've said that 1,000 times already, but I think Gunther should have won here. I don't think waiting to Berlin was the right decision. I'm glad they didn't do that. No reason for him to lose just to win it a few weeks later. I think the Judgment Day kind of breaking apart happened in the first match, and we got a couple more cracks here. I mean, I think it made sense. Gunther should have won. He did. Finn got involved. Whatever. But, I mean, it was the right decision. And like you said, I thought it was a good, solid match, and I give them props. They pumped Priest up to be something I didn't expect them to be at this point. So, I mean, a little golf clap for them.
Talking about that, I mean, we talked about Priest and kind of assessing his overall World Heavyweight Championship run on the show a couple weeks ago. They did put out that 24 for him on Monday. I had a chance to watch it yesterday. It was great. Your thoughts, because I know you were not super sold on Damian as the World Heavyweight Champion. Not only your thoughts on his run, now that it's officially over, and again, we kind of already talked about that, but more so the fact that they have managed through this feud, specifically with Gunther, and Gunther is getting great heat, but through this feud specifically, they have gotten Damian Priest over. Before Finn Balor even turned on it, people were already in the Damian Priest camp, gradually turning him babyface. And then on Raw, which we'll get to in a little bit, but on Raw, he got a great reaction, destroying JD McDonough and hitting his finisher on him. That was a hot crowd to begin with in Baltimore, or wherever they were on Monday.
Baltimore.
But it was Baltimore. He got a great reaction. So your thoughts on Damian Priest as far as how they've managed to get him over? It took a little bit longer than I think it should have. And also, too, it was funny. I was watching the 24 yesterday, and they were like, oh, yeah, they were talking about 2021. They were like, oh, yeah, he won the United States Championship, but he was never really comfortable as a character, and he was kind of portraying someone that he wasn't. I'm like, bro, if you were watching the fucking product back then, he was over. He was getting over when he won the title. He was winning matches. When the crowds came back, he was getting over. And then what fucked him up was that dumbass split personality gimmick where people didn't know whether to cheer or boo him. And that shit sucked. And they didn't say that in the documentary because, God forbid, they blame something on themselves and not the performer. But I'm like, dude, that was what went wrong there. I don't know if we would be in the same spot if that didn't happen. But that was really what killed his momentum for a good long time, was that split personality bullshit, because he was getting over as a top babyface or close to a top babyface to the point where 2-3 years ago, it's going to sound comical now, but I did say he could be a guy to potentially beat Roman Reigns. And they fucked that up by having him do that split personality garbage, like I said. So, anyway, your thoughts on how they managed to get Priest over through this feud with Gunther on the Raw roster?
No, they've done a great job. Like I said, when he first won, I was like, ugh. I feel like they just put the belt on him. And at the time, I think people can agree. At the time they put it on him, he was basically like an upper mid-card guy. Only reason he had won it at that point was because of the briefcase. And I will give him credit. I think throughout time I think it also probably helped that Rhea was off. Like, he then was the guy in the Judgment Day. Like, he was the top dog. Before, he was kind of like, pretty much everyone was like Rhea's lackey at that point.
Yeah.
I think her getting hurt was kind of like a blessing in disguise for him, because obviously he was like the top dog. And I think they did a good job with this Gunther feud too, just turning him face and people getting behind him. And I totally see him in a different light right now. And like you said, I think in 2020, 2021, he was getting over, but then they did the dumb fucking split personality thing, so you didn't know if he was the cheer or boo him. I mean, that's not, like, that was so true, because, like, he would sometimes be heel, sometimes be face. Like, it just didn't make sense.
No, it didn't make sense. It was stupid. They do that shit all the time where they're like, oh, yeah, this is what really got him over. Yeah, Judgment Day obviously got his career back on track, but let's not pretend that in 2021 that he did not have momentum and that he was getting over and that he was doing well. He was champion for a while, all this other shit, until you guys specifically fucked him up by having him do the split personality garbage. But shockingly, that was omitted from the documentary because Vince isn't even there anymore, but that was his idea, and they're not going to bury their whatever. They're not going to even mention him, but it's just funny when they do that shit. But yeah, do you think he stays at this level, or is this like there's a lot of people that win the world title and then we don't see him at that level again, like a Jack Swagger, and I don't want to compare him to Jack Swagger, but Jack Swagger, even Kofi Kingston, Jinder Mahal, is he another one of those guys, or is he a main event guy from, here on out?
I think he has the potential to be a main event guy, keep him going out. I think what they're doing with him now, I think, will be kind of what they see in him more. I think he can be a main event guy. It just all depends on the booking. But from what we saw on Raw, I think it's fair to say that they see him at that light now. Yeah,
hopefully. Like you said, I like how you said that, because I think the potential is there, but it's more a matter of whether they keep him there. I think he can be, definitely, but it's more a matter of whether WWE will follow through and allow him to maintain this momentum from this point forward. And we were just at the main event. We're just like that. We're at the main event. Bloodline Rules match for the undisputed WWE Championship. Cody Rhodes taking on Solo Sikoa, defending the championship against Solo Sikoa. Now, they did add the stipulation on Friday's SmackDown, which immediately told you, okay, if Roman Reigns isn't returning afterward, then at this point he's definitely returning during said matchup. And that's exactly what happened. Now, it played out predictably, but I thought the match, it was fun. Now, the rest of the show, we were in the press box, and they were closed windows, which was annoying, so it was hard to hear what was going on. It wasn't like the press box that you and I were in the last couple of years where it was open and we can hear and shit. That was not what this was, unfortunately. But we were on the floor for this match, and I thought the crowd was entertained enough. I thought the crowd was into it. They weren't completely quiet. Maybe it didn't come across that way on TV. I did watch back the match, and they do sound quiet, but I don't know. They sounded like they were into it to me when I was there. But anyway, they had a good match. Randy Orton came out. Kevin Owens came out. The other Bloodline guys come out. Chica Fatu may have gotten hurt, but now that I think about it, I'm not sure if that was legit or not. It was said that it was legit, but I feel like it might not be, because if he did not get hurt, and what would he have done? Like Roman Reigns, they were going to keep him apart from Jacob Fatu on purpose. So I feel like they did that on purpose so they could write Fatu out of the equation, unless someone took out Fatu. But people were like, oh, where's DIY? Like, dude, DIY is not coming out here. I know Johnny's from Cleveland. Johnny's from Cleveland, but I can't tell you how many people in the media section were like, oh, why isn't DIY coming out? Dude, I agree. Would I have had them come out there? Yes, I would have. But they're not going to put these two guys that just got fucking destroyed by the Bloodline on SmackDown out there in the company of Randy Orton and Kevin Owens. They're not the same. They're not. I love Gargano. It sucks that he's not on the show. But that's just what it is. They didn't give a fuck about putting them on the show. If they wanted to put them on the show, they would have put the tag team title match on the show. Like, at any point, did you think DIY was going to be out there? Like, what the fuck? You got to be realistic here. I'm just saying.
I think... Oh, God. This place I would have farted if they came out. The match stuff, I thought it was, like you said, I thought it was a good match. I thought, Solo and Cody had a pretty good match until, all the all the interference started coming out, but I think it was done well. Owens and Orton kind of neutralizing Tama Tonga and Tonga Loa, and then Jacob comes out. Like I said, I think it was more of a work. I don't think he was really that hurt. They're like, oh, like you said, I think it was more the fact they don't want him and Roman either coming against each other or someone, like, taking him out. So, like, I guess technically he took himself out. And then we got the Roman coming out, spear, Superman punch, spear, Cody. I think hit one cross the Rhodes. He should have only hit one, but then he wins, and then so we get off the show. I thought it was a solid end of the night. Roman came back. People went crazy, and can't wait for SmackDown tomorrow night and see what Roman has to say and what's going on from here.
I agree. Now, that is worth noting. He attacked Solo, laid out Solo, the tribal chief, as he was calling himself, prior to Roman's return, but he had no interaction with Jacob Fatu, which tells me, hopefully, that is the ultimate match we are building to. And Roman and Solo we will get, as we should, but they might do that first and save Roman and Jacob Fatu for down the road, which they fucking should, because it will be a much better match than Roman and Solo. But the Roman return came off great, got an awesome reaction using the music from Mania 40 for his entrance. And he did not hesitate. He immediately got in the ring and immediately laid out Solo Sikoa. And like you said, creating a great cliffhanger for Friday's SmackDown as far as not really explaining himself. We know why he did that. But how they choose to go about this with the rest of the bloodline and all this other shit. So I am very intrigued to see where they go with it from here. Cody Rhodes did win with the help of Roman Reigns and not on his own. That was my only hesitation here, was that I was kind of hoping Roman would come back afterward because they did not want Cody to win with help from Roman Reigns. And now he needed help regardless because he got beat up by the bloodline, so he kind of just neutralized that. But still, I mean, Cody would not have, even with Jacob Fatu out of the equation, it was even to that point when Solo and Cody were in the ring, and then Roman came out and helped Cody win. So onto a bigger question, will Cody Rhodes, and I've already discussed this a lot in the last week, so I want to get your thoughts. Will Cody Rhodes, or could he get overshadowed here by Roman Reigns being the new top babyface in WWE? Not only that, but both guys being on the same show, no less.
That's a great question. I mean, he could be. I mean, Roman is the guy. They're on the same show. I think in the time being, I think they're going to be two totally different. I'm assuming they'll probably split them apart. So, I guess he could take advantage or be like a bigger feature than Cody. But yeah. It's not that it's even a big deal. I mean, Roman's the biggest guy in the business. So, Cody's the top champion and the top babyface till Roman came back. But at the end of the day, Roman's Roman. I mean, he's the guy, he's the needle mover, he's the tribal chief, whatever you want to call him. I mean, he sells, and unfortunately, he's the guy. I mean, it's like if someone else was really good and then Patrick Mahomes came back, I mean, he's the guy, so that's just what happens. So, I mean, he might overshadow him, he probably will, but when you're the best or the biggest draw, you can kind of come back whenever you want, and everyone else kind of just has to acknowledge you, I guess.
Yeah, they got to tread carefully to not have, Cody's title run suffer because of Roman Reigns being back. The Bloodline stuff will obviously be the biggest thing on SmackDown, but I was kind of hoping Orton would be next for Cody, and that's clearly not the case, which we'll get to in a moment. I don't really know where you go next. Do you have any obvious ideas for what they could do at Bash in Berlin? Is it a triple threat with Roman, Solo, and Cody? And I don't know if they want Roman and Solo in the ring that quickly. If it's not one-on-one, I'm not sure, but I don't know. Honestly, I'm not really sure where they go next with Cody's title run. If he's already beaten AJ and Logan Paul and now Solo, and he's beaten Roman, you could do a third match. I'm not really sure why you would. At this current point, I would save that for a lot later down the road. So I don't really know what you do with Cody Rhodes at Bash in Berlin.
Yeah, that's a great question.
Just thinking of the SmackDown roster depth, I'm not really sure who's left. I mean, unless you have Kevin Owens get the opportunity, but
I was gonna say maybe give Owens a shot since he helped him out.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, and this is what I'm saying. I mean, that's a good match, but I don't want the Roman stuff to completely make it feel like Cody's just playing second fiddle as champion, and his title defenses are not as important as they were even a week ago. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I think, like you said, I wouldn't have done him and Orton. I think him and Orton was like a whole program, so I wouldn't do them like right after SummerSlam. But I think him and Owens like on a one-off, or like I said, hey, you helped me, so I'll give you a title shot. Randy got his, so I don't know. I think something like a nice throwaway, but I think it would be a good match for the interim, and then get back to what we're trying to get towards.
I agree. Talking about just SummerSlam in general, as we wind down the SummerSlam portion, before I get your thoughts, some quick thoughts on Raw. What was your overall impression of the pay-per-view? Like I said, I thought it was probably the best SummerSlam in close to a decade, and we've had some good SummerSlams, but, you've been to a few yourself. Just talking about the SummerSlam this year. I mean, listen, it ended on a much better note than last year's when we were there, when Jay got fucked over by Jimmy. We were all thinking for the next 24 hours, like, why? What's the point? Why did they do that? Like, a lot of, like, scratching of the head, so to speak. This year, not so much. It was a much more satisfying conclusion for the show. So, your thoughts on the pay-per-view overall?
As a whole, I mean, I think it was, like, the most predictable show I've ever watched, but, like, it was also, like... No, it's not a bad thing.
It was pretty predictable, yeah.
The most predictable show I've ever watched, but it was also, like, the best booked predictable. Like, I think everything that happened needed to happen. It should have happened. Everyone thought it was going to happen, and it did happen. I think it was just, like, every match, the right person won. The finishes were pretty much the right need. I think, like I said, I think everything was done. Like, Dominik turned on Rhea. Roman came back. LNA finally got his moment. Nia won that she should have won. Like, Bron Breakker got his moment, won the title. I mean, I just feel like everyone won that needed to win. Gunther got his title win, and then we got him and Damian and Finn. So I think overall it was the pretty much perfect show booked-wise. It was very predictable, but I didn't think that was really a problem. Like, sometimes predictability can be a problem, but when it was predictable, but it was also interesting, it kind of outweighs it. And the only thing I would have changed was scrap the jelly roll fucking R-Truth down under crap, and it would have been probably 10 out of 10.
I also think this was a necessary show, that we needed some significant storyline developments, and I think we got that on this show. Not only with the 4 title changes, but Rhea being betrayed by Dom, Finn betraying Damian Priest, Roman Reigns returning. It gives you a lot to look forward to in the weeks that follow, which I think was also necessary.
No, it needed to happen. I think a ton of title changes, but with stories going into the coming year and the landscape changing a little bit, it was definitely needed.
No, I agree. As we go into the Raw stuff real quickly, just some highlights from that show. As we mentioned, Randy Orton not being next for Cody Rhodes coming out of Bash in Berlin. Your thoughts on Randy Orton stepping up to face Gunther instead at Bash in Berlin for the World Heavyweight Championship? There were some teases earlier in the day by some folks on social media, and they are indeed going in that direction. It will be Randy Orton and Gunther, too, for the World Heavyweight title at Bash in Berlin after Gunther... His win wasn't exactly decisive back at King and Queen of the Ring. I don't think that was on purpose. I think they fucked up the finish, and they were like, all right, we'll earmark that for later. We'll go back to it. And they are. That's a pretty big attraction. And they had a very good match the first time. The second match should be just as good, if not better, now that they have something to play off of. So I think I was not expecting that, but I think that's a really, really cool move. No,
I think it was done well. I think, like you said, I don't think that was obviously the plan, but it happened. And they want Gunther to be heel, even though he's going towards his hometown. I mean, who's going to boo Randy Orton? I mean, come on. I mean, that just doesn't happen. So I think it's the perfect person if you want Gunther to still be considered a heel, just because Randy's Randy. And like I said, people aren't going to boo him, I don't think. Mm-hmm. So I think it was done well. I did see people like crying on Twitter. Oh, what about the brand split? Okay, it makes sense. Stop being a fucking mark and just get over it. It's just it's a rematch. Get over it. I can't stand the brand split shit. I'm tired of hearing about it. Like, you have to think it's like Roman Reigns on every show. It's fucking Orton. There's a story to be told.
It makes sense.
Get over it.
It makes sense. Listen, I'm the biggest proponent of complaining about the brand split stuff, but I haven't done it in a long time because, one, they haven't really been guilty of it, and two, it's not even, what does it even mean at this point? I mean, they've abused it so much, who even gives a shit? But three, it makes sense. I mean, they should have even done the match coming out of King and Queen of the Ring, but they didn't want to. Maybe they had the idea of like, all right, we'll wait until after Gunther wins the belt, and then Orton can cash in his chips and be like, all right, I want a rematch, but it's going to be for that title. I just feel like that makes even more sense than if they did it at Clash of the Castle or whatever. So I like that a lot. Do you think this loss will only add to the idea that Orton is turning heel imminently? I mean, the guy lost at the Royal Rumble to Roman Reigns in that fatal four-way match. He failed to win the Elimination Chamber. He lost to WrestleMania in the United States Championship match. Lost in the finals of King and Queen of the Ring. Lost in that six-man tag team match of Money in the Bank. And this is probably going to be another loss for Randy Orton. So is that heel turn still coming in the foreseeable future, you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's where we're going to get that soon, and it'll be him and Cody. There's going to be the feud. I mean, he's good as a babyface, but I always think he's better as a heel. He's getting a ton of losses this year. I think it's starting to get time to turn the Viper heel again.
I think so. Some other stuff from Raw on Monday night. The Wyatt Sicks making their in-ring debut finally. Joe Gacy, Eric Rowan, and Dexter Lumis knocking off the new trio of American Made, I believe is their new name, Chad Gable and the Creed Brothers. That was actually a lot better than expected. The crowd ate it up. It was in the same city where the Wyatt family made their debut 11 years ago, which was cool. They timed that very well. Yeah, I thought the whole thing was great, though. I thought they did a really, really good job with this, and the crowd was into it. It was a worthy conclusion to the show. I know you've been back and forth on the Wyatt stuff since it started, but where do you stand now following their successful in-ring debut on Monday night?
I mean, it's tough to say, honestly. I feel like it was a good match. Like you said, they won. It was just me. I just feel like it was like a tribute act. Like they're like, oh, like they're so like Bray would be so happy right now. But it's like, what? Like, I guess my question with the group is I just don't like know what you do with them, and I feel like that's my problem. I think Gable with the Creeds is a great tandem, but they just lose here. But what's, like, the end game with Wyatt Sicks? Like, are they actually going to be, like, contending for championships? Or are they just going to be on the show? I don't know. Like, are they just going to be on the show? I guess that's my question. Like, I think it was a good start, but I'm very interested to see what they do with them because I just feel like it's more like a nostalgic kind of tribute act than, like, actually, like, booking them to be something.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't know what the end game is exactly. I don't think they're going for the WWE title. I do think we will get Bo Dallas and Chad Gable one of these weeks. I mean, but I do think it's a good idea. I do think it's an encouraging sign that they're already in the ring. I've said this before, but like when they first debuted, I was kind of worried, oh, it might be another 6 months before they wrestle like Bray Wyatt. Like that shit was ridiculous. I don't know if Bray was hurt or what was going on there at the time back in late 2022. But they're already in the ring and they won this match. I feel like that's a good sign for their future. I mean, it looks like they might be a regular team on the show, having matches, maybe chase the tag titles. I mean, they have to play it carefully and get more character stuff out of it as opposed to just being another team on the show. But I think it's been a pretty good start so far, if nothing else.
Yeah, it was a good start. I just, like I said, I'm interested to see, like, I guess their ceiling on what they do with them. Yeah,
I mean, there certainly is a certain ceiling that they have. Definitely. I mean, they are not completely supernatural, but there is a supernatural aspect to the group. So they can only go so far, but so far so good, I think. Last two things here, they made a great one-night effort in getting two people over in one night. First with Odyssey Jones, apparently joining the New Day or becoming an ally of the New Day, Kofi Kingston welcoming Odyssey Jones. He can take the milk cart next to Mr. Marceau and take Odyssey Jones' face off of it. He's out of catering finally after fucking a year and a half on the main roster, finally appearing on the show. And it's not even as if, like, oh, he was on main event. Like, no, they have done absolutely nothing with this guy. He may have worked house shows, but that's it. Nothing on TV at all, not even main event. But he finally showed up on Monday, helping out New Day against Final Testament. And Xavier Woods didn't exactly look thrilled that they were kind of recruiting him into the group to replace Big E, who was obviously in favor of the move as he tweeted about it later on in the night. So I thought this was a pretty cool development. I was not expecting this, and he was over in front of that crowd. They had him kind of dominate AOP and Karrion Kross, and the people got into it. So, yeah, your thoughts in the finally in-ring debut of Odyssey Jones on Raw.
He's alive, people. We found him. I just ripped off the package at the side of the milk car, and I called the authorities. He's found. Like you said, I thought it was a great debut. I don't know if he was just at the Performance Center kind of ironing out whatever he needed to do in ring. Like, we only saw him a handful. I feel like he wasn't really in NXT for long enough that he really needed it. But big performance. I mean, there's not a ton to say. I thought it was good. I mean, not that he's from Baltimore, but he's a local New York guy. He played football in Syracuse, so I'm close enough to Baltimore. But yeah, I thought it was a good debut. Kind of over the whole New Day Final Testament stuff, but at least this is some spark to give us something new, at least. So I liked it. I thought he looked good. The double sidewalk slam on AOP was crazy, and then him dumping Cross was good as well. So a new development, which I'll take, and I'm glad we found him.
You know, they're not exactly carrying crossover through this feud, but I think they could use the New Day to get Odyssey Jones over, if nothing else. I feel like. And do you think this could lead to a New Day breakup, or is that safe to say that's not happening?
I mean, if I was wishful thinking, I would say yes, but I think at this point they're never going to break up.
It's been a decade, yeah.
It's been so long at this point, but like I said, adding Odyssey Jones, like I said, I don't know if Honor remember, or he's just going to like get over through them. I don't hate it. But yeah, I mean, I think putting him with them can help a lot. I think he needs them more than they need him, but I think it's a good start.
I think so. I think he got off to a really good start. I mean, he could have come out to crickets, but he did a pretty good job of making his first impression on Monday night. The other guy that happened with was Bronson Reed. I thought he had a great night on Monday following the Punk McIntyre-Rollins exchange. Punk chases after McIntyre. Rollins left in the ring. Bronson Reed comes out, just destroys Rollins. Now, we did say to Adam Pearce earlier in the night, I want competition, blah, blah, blah. And we've heard this from Bronson before. It doesn't really go anywhere. He's challenged Gunther unsuccessfully for the Intercontinental title. He's had a million matches with this guy, that guy. He was involved in this feud, challenged for the Intercontinental title and lost. He did win the Honor the Giant Memorial Battle Royal back in March or whatever the fuck it was, April. It didn't matter, obviously. That shit doesn't count for anything. But, you know, he was on this show, and he got a great reaction for laying out Rollins with not one, not two, but like 7 tsunami splashes. They got him over in one night. Now, whether this will maintain is the question. I'm not sure if it will. But as a one-night angle, this was the best thing he's ever done on the main roster by a country fucking mile. So your thoughts on the Bronson Reed angle on Monday and whether you were a fan of it. And I think this is what's been missing from him for the longest time as far as putting him with someone that's over to work with.
I mean, I thought this was good. But you said it. Where do they go with him next? I love Bronson Reed, but they've done this with him 1,000 times. And is he actually going to materialize to something? I mean, they push him. He wins he actually wins a decent amount of matches, but he's never the focus. Like, he's in someone else's feud. He wins the matches in between, and then when it gets the match that really matters, he loses every time.
Correct.
So
yeah.
I'm hoping he can win here, but I mean, it's also against Rollins, who, I mean, I doubt he's going to. I don't know. I feel like they don't know what to do with Reed. I feel like he's been booked well, but it's kind of like spinning your wheels is like an understatement. I just really don't know what they do with him. I feel like they bring him back and he does like destroy someone, hits like 17 tsunamis. Like I said, wins random matches in a feud that he's in, but like not really in, and then nothing comes out of it. So I'm hopeful. I think he's there. I mean, I don't know. I just don't know how they see him, I guess is the best way to say it. Like, he wins a ton of matches, but like when it matters most, he loses. He's kind of like the new fucking Braun Strowman at this point.
Yeah.
Like, shit or get off the pot with him. Either you're going to push him or you're not. I mean, I think for me specifically, I just get frustrated because, like, I like Bronson. I think he's good and think he should be pushed. And then they push him, and then anytime he needs to win, they have him lose. And then he's off TV, and like I said, then, like, he's in someone else's feud, he wins the matches, and then they put him in triple threat and he loses.
Yeah.
Or he's in a 4-way and he loses. Like, fucking, like I said, shit or get out the pot with him. If you're going to push him, push him. If you're not, you're not. Like, it's kind of frustrating with him specifically that I think they book him well, but he just never wins when it matters. And as a fan of his, it just really frustrates me.
I agree. I feel like they could be doing more, obviously. That goes without saying. I mean, this was a very encouraging sign just because they've done stuff with, like, they've done stuff with him before, but nothing quite to this extent where he was out there getting a massive reaction for destroying someone the caliber of Rollins. Now, I did see earlier today that Rollins is out with another injury, is covering for a legit injury. So I'm not sure if the match is even happening anytime soon. As long as it doesn't happen on Raw in the next 2 weeks, that's good, because they do this stuff with Bronson sometimes, not, again, to this extent, but like it'll set up a match on Raw, and then he'll fucking lose. Like he went after Jey Uso, and I'm like, oh, cool, like a Jey Uso program. And then Jey Uso beat him like the following week. It's like, okay, then I guess never mind. So they need to be careful here as far as building him up just to lose immediately. But, maybe they can pair him with, you mentioned Braun Strowman. Maybe they could pair him with him for now while Rollins is apparently out, and he could beat Braun Strowman or whatever. He's got to rack up wins over people that matter and not just the Ricochets or the fucking Alpha Academies. Like, he has to beat actual people of importance in order to get to that next level. Otherwise, he's just... I think the key of what you said is, how do they view him? So far, it feels like they view him as a stepping stone, and they need to be careful to not label him as such or, cement his spot in that way, because they already have. A lot of people look at him in that way. Could they change that?
But like you said, that's how they booked him. I mean, looking at it, since this year, he's beaten Ivar, Akira Tozawa, fucking Apollo Crews, Sami Zayn. I don't even remember. That was on Raw, I guess.
Yeah, it was right before Mania, yeah.
Tozawa again, Otis, Pete Dunne, Sheamus. Like, he just beat Sheamus, but that was
good. That was the Sheamus thing was a good start
for Pete Dunne. But like that, Sheamus is the only person out of that list that's like worth a nickel, and that's last week.
Yeah, and the Sami Zayn thing was good, but he didn't end up winning the IC title.
Yeah, he lost in the triple threat. So it didn't really matter. But like you said, I think it's encouraging because it is Rollins, and like I said, he did beat Sheamus recently, but I mean, they really need to. You're going to do it, go all the way.
They need to, and I think that if there was ever an opportunity to do it, it would be now. He's been around long enough. They've had opportunities. They've missed those opportunities. People gave a shit about that attack on Monday. They need to follow it up in a big way on Monday, whether Rollins is there or not. Maybe he attempts to come out and Reed leaves him out again. I don't know. But Rollins is one of those guys that it will forever be over. He's one of those perennial main event players. He can really help get Bronson Reed to that next level, which they need. They need more monsters like a Bronson Reed. They have Braun Breaker, and he's great, and he's getting over. Bronson Reed can also have similar success if they were to book him in that way. And I think Monday was a good start. But a lot more to get to next week, Mr. Marceau. We'll talk about it then. New episodes every single Thursday. WrestleRant.com, WrestleRantRadio.com, all the usual podcast platforms. Rate the show, review the show, subscribe to the show, and we'll speak next week, brother. So feel better, and I'll catch you next Thursday, brother.
See you later.
Adios.
Join Graham, GSM Matthews, and RJ Marceau every Thursday as they run down their weekly wrestling rants, offer expert analysis, host exclusive interviews, and more. Subscribe today on all your favorite podcast platforms and never miss an episode of WrestleRant Radio.